Okay, hello guys. Today we're going to look at these wiring diagrams and how to read them. Um, these, when you first look at them, they're so daunting and you're like, what can I do with this? Now, I'll give you a few examples of what you could do these for. If you wanted to trace a fault, if you wanted to find possibly an ignition wire to power something, tap into a reverse light, this is where everything comes into play. And where'd you get these diagrams for a start? So if you look on eBay, there's people that sell them for about 5 or 10 quid. They're not expensive, but they're not just electric. They'll tell you how to do pretty much anything in your car, remove a bonnet, blah blah blah. And they're called workshop manuals. Just make sure you get the one that's specific for your car. Now this one is for an Audi A5. Why it's got all these, I don't know, but it is specifically for an Audi A5. You can see it in the title there. Make sure you get the correct year and stuff like that. And you will forever reference these, even when you go change a light bulb in the car and how to get it out. These come with everything. So we'll just break it down. Like we're going to go through a bit of a scenario here today and kind of, how I'd go about doing something. So for today's example, and I'll do a few examples, we're going to look at the 12-volt socket. Now, let's say I want to make all my 12-volt sockets live instead of coming on with the ignition and that whatnot. First thing we need to do is find the 12-volt socket. So we'll just start from the top here because we've just jumped down. Um, so Control and F is your friend on this. um, just be careful of the spelling. So, for example, if I type 12-volt socket, it's not coming up with anything. Just you have to play around a little bit. There we go, to find what you're after. And you can see here that there's a few sockets here. So we need to first find out which one's the one in the luggage. Let's say we want to rewire the one in the luggage compartment. I want to see how I do. Want to make the one in the luggage compartment live, and that's something I wanted to do because I like to charge stuff when I'm away. Okay, so 12-volt 12 socket. We've got a few here, so we need to find the one that's the boot. Audi do good with these. They've got codes for each little element of the car. So when you start referencing, if you type U18, for example, that will come up all over the diagrams. Let's have a look. So we've got 12-volt socket. So this one looks like the one in the front. Here you've got how to remove it, how to actually get it out, blah, blah, blah. The removal tools. Let's keep going. So now we're at the one at the rear seat. And this is the one in the luggage compartment, and it's called U20. There's also U26. Let's try U20 first. Potentially U26 is for if you've got two sockets there or another car. Let's have a look. So we're in Control and F, U20. And then here we go. U20. So this is the wiring diagram. So let's break this down a little bit for a start. So down here we've got track numbers, and I'll come on to these a bit later, but just know that they're there for now. The colouring is the colouring, brown here, BR. That references that the cable is brown, obviously. Now anything in an Audi that's brown is likely to be a ground. Um, so if you find one and you need a ground, then there you can probably use one of them, or you can just find some bodywork to attach a cable to, as you probably know if you're reading these. This here, 0.5, that is the thickness of the wire. 0.5 is quite thin wire, 1.5 is medium, 2.5 is quite, well, I'll say thicker. It's nice chunky wire. Um, but here we've got the colours, white stripe, oh, I don't know, but you get it. Got grey, oh God, it's real. I'm struggling here. Grey, blue, and white. I don't know what the WS is. White, violet, who knows? But that's the colouring of them things. So we can see here, these are the five sockets or four sockets, U5, U18, U19, U20. And we can see here there's a feed, it goes up here, and they all seem to join together at this point, B680, which is a connector electrical socket in interior wiring harness. Where that is, I don't know, but we can kind of see that they're all interconnected together and they're all coming from the same power source. Now we've got these blue wires, thinking, what are these? Let's have a look. So if we follow this down here, they're going to L28, which is cigarette light. So this is for the lights that power it. So if you've got lights that kind of come around the socket, this is what's feeding them. Now this is good if you want to put in some aftermarket ambient lighting kit or something like that. Then you know that if you find one of these wires, that you could probably tap into them to kind of do that feed or to trigger any sort of like neons you want to put in your car or anything like that. But this is kind of a light signal. But just bear in mind this cable is 0.35 mil. I think it's mil. We just need to check something. I'm just let's just have a. I'm just looking on another screen. Oops, camera lenses. No point gauge wire. And we need to be careful that, so 0.35 mil, I've just typed it in, 0.35 mil gauge wire. I'll give you here just a bit of an ampage chart. I think, because we don't want to be putting in 5 amp through this, it'll just melt the wire. Ampacity. So there we go. So it's 22 ADGW, which is usually how they're measured. Let's have a look. 22 ADW ampage. Oh, there must be a chart somewhere. 7 amps, there we go. 7 amps maximum. So we know that we can send anything that's maybe 3 or 4 amps down there. We don't want to be sending 7 down there and pushing it on the limit. So if you've got something that's 36 watt at 12 volts, that's 3 amps. So yeah, you can probably get away with most things like that. Especially for lights, they use like 5 or 10 watts LED. But if you're doing something like 50,000 LEDs in your car, then yeah, you need to be mindful of that sort of thing anyway. But this is kind of what's going on here, and we're going to look here at track numbers now. Now the cables come up here, and they kind of disappear up here. Like, well, where they go? So if we look here, these numbers here reference down here. So we're on track 240. Now track is just, I can't explain it, but it will make sense. So track 240, we follow it up here to goes to 143. Now if we scroll up, 143 is here, and this is the wire that's just come off the other page onto this page. And we can see exactly where it goes. And we can see it goes into the J519. Now, if you don't know what J519 is, it's for this specific example, onboard supply control unit. Cars have so many modules inside them that control things. They don't go to the fuse directly. There'll be a fuse there'll be power to the module for that specific output. So there'll be an input for cigarette lighters and then an output of the cable that we're seeing on the screen now. And the J519 is controlling the on and off sort of status of that. And when the car comes on, you turn the ignition on, that will turn on the power to there. And that's what's actually controlling it. Now, in this example, let's say we want to make it permanent. Now, I don't recommend you do it this way. I'm just purely giving you a bit of an example so you can kind of work this sort of stuff out. But if you made this cable permanent, you would know from this diagram that it would affect all these because they're all interconnected. So if we made this permanent here, that would be permanent, that would be permanent, that would be permanent, that would be permanent. So if that's what you want to achieve, that's fine. But if you only wanted to make one permanent, you may have to look at potentially this cable here goes all the way to the module at the front. You may have to run a new cable from the fuse system in the boot to this socket to make it permanent. But if you're happy with all, let's just, in this example, and this is not real life, you want to make all these permanent, let's go back up to 140, which is the track number. There we go, 143. We can go, now we look here, what is this? What's this number here? So this here is the connector. And the connector is T73A, and it's on pin 1. That's brilliant. KL30G, I think that's a relay, so there's probably a relay involved somewhere that's controlling this. So I'm just going to give you an example. Let's say your car starts going a bit funny and stuff stops working. If you can identify the relay, and let's say you know that the cigarette lighter sockets have stopped working, and I don't know, for example, the left tail light stopped working, you can look at that relay and kind of flick through this, doing a bit of a control and F and seeing what sort of sorry, I'll start again. Let's say your socket stopped working and the fuse is fine, and you're like, how do I get to this? What's causing this? And you think, well, it could be something else. It could be a relay. So you look on the diagram and you can then say, well, oh, look, it uses that relay. So you'll find a way. You'll probably have to do a bit of Googling this. I don't know if this shows exact points of relays, but you'll kind of know another thing to check. And you could go check that relay, for example, and, if your cigarette light stopped working, or it could be the wiring or such forth. But let's just have a look at T73A, which is a connector. Now, I know all the connector information is at the bottom, so I'm just going to search for it upwards from the bottom instead. Again, Control F is your friend. There we go, straight away. We'll scroll up a bit, and we can see here T73A it shows us where the module is. Bear in mind in the diagram it's the left-hand drive, so this module may be on the other side, or it could be potentially just a little bit different. A bit of Googling would help you locate it. I think it's on the outer side for the left-hand drive. But we can see here T738 is connector A, which is this one here, and we know it was pin 1. There we go. So we know that if we pulled that connector out, which A, pin 1 down here is the where all the power comes from for the cigarette light sockets. And we can actually pull these pins out now. Bit of YouTube, you'll find a video, but you can pull the pins out of the harness and actually pull the individual pin out. And you could get that cable and wire it to potentially slice into terminal 30. Now, terminal 30 in cars is permanent live. Terminal 15 is ignition sort of source, so these will only come on with the ignition. So you know you've got a pin right next to that that's actually providing permanent live. Um, Now, there's probably better ways to do this, but this is just one way to do it. Providing it's fused, it's not really a big problem, but the issue you'll have here is there's a 30 amp fuse on that, and then you're running kind of um, the cable, the violet cable is 2.5 mil. It can only handle, I don't know, 10 amps, and the amp is 30 amp. Then there's a potential for a fire here. So you would, to do it properly, you would be better off sticking a fuse in, potentially like a 3 amp fuse. Just to when you do fuses, you're protecting the cable, not the appliance. So you've got to make sure that the fuse will blow before the cable does. So just bear that in mind. So if you did want to do something like this, providing that there is a fuse between the splicing point and the thinner cable, you could get away with it. The other thing you could do is just pull that out altogether and then run a cable directly to your fuse box, which will probably be down here somewhere, and kind of use a fuse tap as a bit of a safer sort of system rather than cutting into wires. Now, if you did something like this, you'd probably get errors on your module, kind of saying there's a short to ground on the sockets and that sort of thing. So just bear that in mind. I mean, they won't flag up on your car, but they'll just when they come up on a scan, it will come up. The proper way to do it would be to amend the coding of the car, but I don't know if you can for this. And you do a bit of a Google. If you look for VCDS amend code ignition sort of thing, then there may be a way to do it. But the problem is, I think it's kind of an all or nothing situation. The module will turn all, systems on and off with the ignition. Not sure how it works, but this is how you do it for a wiring sort of situation. Um, Bear in mind, like I said, don't take this for gospel to do this particular scenario. I'm just giving examples. Let's have a look at another one. So reverse light. So reverse light. Let's say we bought. So reverse light doesn't work. Let's try reversing lights. There we go. So let's say we bought a rear camera. It's a cheap one off AliExpress, whatever. We need to tap into the car to, I don't know, find um, a reverse line so that the car knows to go into reverse signal if you've got aftermarket stuff, that sort of example. Um, so there's one option is you could look in your boot and find the reverse line, which is fine. But if you've got a 5 door, then it's quite difficult to run cables through these sort of grommets and stuff like that. 2 doors not as bad, but for a 5 door, you'd probably be better going to the source of this cable, for example, this connector. Where is the connector? So we've got right reversing light bulb, left reversing light bulb, which is M17. So let's have a look at M17, M16, sorry. So we can see here, this cable here runs to this point here, J393, which I'll tell you now is a convenient system that's in the boot, and the left side of the boot. So if we just look here, T17B, just go to the bottom, search upwards. There we go, we found it. Let's just see what it looks like. Keep going up a bit more. There we go. T17B is connector B, and it's just about there. So if you pulled out your left-hand side cargo system, you'd see this connector here, and to go to the specific, what was it, pin number, left reversing light. There we go, left reversing light, pin 3. So we know that we could pull that cable out, tap into it, for example, and then run your cable wherever you need to go if you wanted to tap into your left reversing light. Again, if you also wanted to tap into your brake light as well, there'll be something here. I'm guessing they all come here. Brake light there, potentially, yeah. rear fog lights. So you can tap into all your cables here. Your horn, alarm horn, if you want to put some sort of a potentially alarm system there that texts you if your alarm's going off, that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, so that's one way to do it. So if you want to kind of do some sort of aftermarket emergency braking light and fancy thing, then you kind of know here that where the switch or the signal wire is for your brakes. So that's another thing you could do. Now let's look at canbus stuff. Now, everything we've looked at, the on and off status is controlled by modules, as in probably relays and stuff like that. Now, for stuff like cigarette lighters and brake lights, they're not as intelligent. They don't need to be as intelligent. You don't want a big module that controls the on and off of just a cigarette socket, for example, do you? But if you look at, let's look at something called tire pressure monitoring system. Now, these are a aftermarket thing you can buy on AliExpress. Let's have a look. TPMS, Audi. If I've been tire pressure. I think I've got one here. Let's have a look. Sorry, so many tabs. There we go. So this is a tire pressure monitoring system. Now these are cheap AliExpress things, but they'll do the job. Um, I love it when they pretend that they're the real guys. Um, but yeah, this is a system that monitors pressures in your tires and then displays it on your virtual cockpit or your MMI system. And this, for example, you probably get this and you think, what the hell do I do with all this wiring? Now, I'll tell you now, just from because I know that this here outputs, you need to put this in your boot, in the back right hand side of the boot. And this here is actually a module. Now, it's AliExpress. It's not going to be an original module. They've obviously factored their own sort of make do thing, but they've kind of made it so that it as if you'd gone to the Audi and bought one yourself. So it is meant to be for the car. It's a retrofit. Now you've got four wires here, so we'll go through the four wires. But if you look on the diagram, there'll probably be something to how to install it, to be fair. So let's have a look. Tire pressure monitoring system. So we can see here straight away, I've just found one. So J502 is the code for this thing here. That is the J502. It's not the part number, it's just a, let's call it a reference number. J502. No, what we're looking for, it doesn't give enough information. Keep looking, there'll be something better. So, yeah, okay, first thing, J502 has canbus. Now, canbus, there's multiple canbuses in the car. There's canbus extended, there's an infotainment canbus, there's a convenience canbus. And we've got to make sure that we wire it into the correct place because that's where the car's expecting it to be. So, think of canbus as a network, and if you we need to attach to the correct network in the car. So we can't just tap into the any canvas that we find. We've got to find one that's closest to us from where we need to be that's got the correct canvas. Now we can see here that J502 is expected to be on the canvas extended system here. If we follow these cables up, 3671, 670, it's all talking about canvas extended high, canvas extended low. So we know that this system needs to be on a canvas extended network. Now I'll keep doing some digging. So here we go. This is the actual bit more specifically just for the unit as it's kind of taking over everything. So J502, so four cables, and you'll get four cables when you buy the device. So one of them goes to ground. Now you don't have to go to this specific connection. You can go to any ground that you want, but this is how, if you bought it from Audi, it would be. So just bear that in mind. We can kind of tailor things to be how we want them to be. If we bought it from Audi, then they would have wired it to the SR2, which is relay and fuse carrier 2, which if you search for this manual, you'll find where it is. It's in the boot. And to search for it, just type SR2 and press enter to your heart's desire. Fuse carrier 3, and it's fuse 6. So if we want to make this as close to retrofit as possible, we could run a cable to the fuse box, and from behind we can push a pin in and make it so that um, we can actually, as if the fuses were part of the car instead of fuse taps, if you know what I mean. So we could do that. So that's, you don't have to do that. You do it your way. We know that from this diagram, and we know if you test that socket there, there'll probably be a pin ready for this system. And if it comes, If it's always on, as this is terminal 30, you know that you can just terminal 30 this. You can just put it to a power. Any fuse that's got permanent power will work, really. But best is keep it as close as you can to retrofit, because then when people look at fuse diagrams, they know where to look for a problem for a car. If you take it in for a fault and they find that, oh, this retrofit that you've put in is causing problems, and as soon as they remove the fuse, it stops working. Um, but that's power, that's ground. Now the CAN bus system. Now, as long as we tap into a CAN bus extended high or a CAN bus extended, sorry, CAN bus extended network, we're fine. Okay, and we need to find the closest one to us. Now, this unit has to go in the right quarter panel of the boot, just because of how it's designed. If you do a bit of Google research, this is where the car expects it because it's to do with signal strengths and so forth. So we need to find the closest source. Now, I know from knowledge that there is a 360 camera module in the boot left-hand side, which would give you CAN bus extended. Let's have a look. No, let's go back. G502. So there's one in the boot, but let's just take it from this diagram of. So it says here to go to J533 if we want to wire it as the car, and pins 12 and pins 30. So let's have a look at pins So let's go. Let's just find the module first and see where it is. Where is this module? We'll go right to the bottom, Control F, and work our way up. Canvas, no, J533. Oh, start again. J533, is that it? Sorry, I'm just looking for it. J533. Da, da, da. Removing install. Let's go to the bottom again, sorry. So the hardest bit of these is just looking through these to find what you need. Sorry, no, these are just things that go to J533, so we need to get a bit more. I think there we go. Connector assignments for J533. We can see here now straight away, we can see exactly where the module is. We can see it's under the bench, under the rear bench of the car. And we were looking for pins. Oh, God. Sorry about that. We were looking for pins 12 and 30. So pins 12, extended CAN bus high. Pin 30, extended CAN bus low. Now, CAN bus has a high and a low. We've got to make sure that we connect whatever we buy to the correct high or low. Otherwise, we're going to get a few problems. Now, you'll probably pull this out and be like, oh, there's a pin there already. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. With CAN bus, what you're doing is you're splicing into it. You're kind of attaching yourself to that network. Just be really mindful that if you cut the wire too short and you can't plug it in, the entire car will probably not function. CAN bus is a very critical part of the car. So with these systems, what you tend to get is kind of splitters. If you see here, it's hard to see here, but that's actually kind of Y splitter. So you'd plug your existing CAN network into there, and then out of here there'll be two pins to replace the pins that you've just pulled out. And then with this specific example, you have to do a bit of coding and stuff to kind of get it back so the car knows that the tire pressure system monitor that you've just put in is there. Now, these are just some examples. Now, don't take anything I've said for gospel. Don't start going doing retrofits based on this guide. But it's just to give you an idea of more how to read these diagrams and how to get around, because they're not easy, but they are really, really useful. I'll give you another example. If you want to put a dash cam in, for example, um, and you want to find the closest ignition rather than running a cable to the fuse box. You might have a module that's just next door to where you need to be in the car, and you think, oh, I wonder if there's a cable there I can tap into. Well, this will tell you your answer. If you look at the module, look at the part number, Google it, you'll probably get an idea of what it is, and then on here you'll be able to find all the pins out. So you'll go to the bottom here, and you'll just look through, let's say we're at the J533 and we want to find a. Let's look at another one. J533. I want to find an ignition source at terminal 15, and we'll be on here. So this one's a big one. Try me, what is that? Special vehicle control unit. I don't know what that is. It's got terminal 30. Terminal 31 is ground. Uh, that one didn't do much. This one's what is that? Special vehicle. Oh, we've just seen that one. Convertible roof actuation. Oh, so that's going to be for your convertibles, all your hydraulic pumps and so forth. But yeah, you get the idea. I hope this video has been helpful for you. It just debunk it a little bit and just make them a little less intimidating. Again, don't follow my advice for the things I've said. I'm explaining the diagrams, not how to do retrofits. But yeah, hope that video has been useful. If it has, subscribe and I'll come back to you another day. Thank you.